I don't know what the path is going to be. I have no idea how I'm going to play basketball with President Obama. I'm going to drive to DC and start asking people on the street, do you know President Obama? That's the only thing I could think of doing. We could think of doing when we started to go after that list item, play basketball with President Obama, was drive to DC. We didn't know anyone in DC, so we had to go meet people. And then after that, we figured out the next step and the next step until finally we found ourselves on the court playing basketball with Obama.
Welcome back to Flourish or Fold, Stories of Resilience, where well-known people have the opportunity to tell their lesser well-known resilient stories. Today we're here with Ben Nemtin, and we're so excited to have you on the show today, Ben.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have you had the opportunity to demonstrate any resilience in the past year?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think that we probably all have. Yes, I think that, like yourself, I was doing a lot of speaking. They were all in person. So my whole business stopped. And then I had to go virtual, like a lot of us. And I also had to sort of grapple with a bit of loss of things that I was really looking forward to do. I had a trip planned with my dad for his 70th birthday. He'd always wanted to go to New Orleans. And so we couldn't do that. I was planning to get married. There's a couple of things that we couldn't do. But, in retrospect, they were just blips on the radar. And so, I think that, for me, something that I've always struggled with is my own mental health through different parts, different periods of my life. I've had some dips. And so I think when I hit this patch, I had kind of built enough tools in my toolkit, so to speak, that I was able to navigate it a little bit better than perhaps I would 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I think that has been one of the things that I've realized is that, through these periods of downs that I've had in my past, I've learned things that have allowed me to navigate these types of, troubled waters, so to speak. And so that was kind of an interesting realization that I kind of had the support of my learnings in the past to kind of navigate some of this past year. So, yeah, I've definitely, it's been up and down the last year.
I love everything that you shared there. And I just did my first in-person event in, I don't know how long, 15, 16 months, probably. And I was so struck by just the universal experiences of what's happened for people, and also all of the unique and nuanced experiences, and how much pain and loss and disappointment and feelings of just kind of people having their lives like really sort of like tossed up in the air, and how much of that people are still were carrying when we came together for this in-person event. And one of the things that I love that you talked about, Ben, was this idea, well, first of all, one of the things I've always appreciated about you is your willingness to tell the honest story, right? To be so open about your struggles and what you've grappled with in service of wanting to shine a light for others or create a path. And I I admire your work and how you go about your work so tremendously. And one of the things that I loved that you said was this idea that, you know, maybe had this sort of like pandemic and quarantine and these losses happened earlier, you may not have had the toolkit that you maybe sort of consciously and maybe partially unconsciously realized you've been cultivating over this time. I know mental health has been a hugely important conversation in all of this. Would you care to share more about, you know, your toolkit, how you've created that toolkit, you know, what's in there, what you pull out, what works?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the benefits of the pandemic is that it's just shone a spotlight on the conversation around mental health, what I think is, you know, arguably the first and most important step in breaking the stigma is that people are talking about it. And so, you know, now you have, you know, multinational corporations that are forced to look at the mental health of their team and their, you know, employees because of it's something that, you know, I mean, you and I have been talking about this for a long time. And I I think people shied away from booking someone that was going to be speaking about mental health because it was still so charged. And now people are seeking out people to speak about mental health and wellness and resilience and, you know, all these things, which is is a big shift in the conversation nationally and globally around mental health, because people because of the pandemic are realizing that, like, everyone is going through something that you can't see, and that's okay. That's just part of the human experience, and that you can't do your job if you don't feel like yourself. You know, you're not going to be able to perform at the highest level. And so there's no work life, you know, balance in the sense that you come out of work and into life and back into work. It's this harmony that you have to create. And I think it's I don't think we're going back to this place where we don't talk about mental health, which is an extremely important step in the evolution of this conversation, ultimately, you know, eradicating the stigma. And so, I mean, I think that's just something that's, when there's been so much heartbreak and struggle, that is something that at least we can look to that's positive, that's come out of this pandemic. And to answer your question, you know, my sort of my toolkit, my resilience toolkit or mental health toolkit, that I've kind of just added to over the years. I just think everyone should have their own resilience toolkit of habits that they know are good for them, that will, you know, in times of need, but also just during the day-to-day, just to practice these things that will allow you to live your best life or perform at the highest level or be the best version of yourself. Not all of the same habits work for everybody, but they're worth trying to find the things that work for you so that you can create your own toolkit, and they work for you, you know, probably for the rest of your life. So it's a, I think, an important thing to really test out these different things. So some of the things that I like that work for me, are, you know, things like gratitude, you know, sort of focusing on the things that are going well in your life versus the things that aren't. I think that typically we gravitate towards the 10-15% of our life that's crap, and then we forget all the other things that are going really, really well, or, you know, we overlook those things. And so a lot of the way that we feel is dictated by our thoughts. So if we focus on those things that we're grateful for, it actually changes the chemistry in our body and makes us feel better. So you can journal one thing, you know, one way to change your life is just focus on one thing you're grateful for before you go to bed, one thing that you're grateful for when you wake up, and that will shift your so your experience a little bit. You know, we've all heard of exercise and why it's important, but I think that sometimes we feel like we need to fit 60 minutes of exercise into our day, when to get serotonin and dopamine release, you know, you don't need to exercise that long. You can get 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And if you stack that exercise with another habit that you already do, it's much easier to accomplish it. So when you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you know, you do 5-10 minutes of maybe a plank or push-ups or something like that, jump in the shower. And I think that has helped me, just sets my day up for success. Also, like, you release negative emotion when you exercise. So it's a positive. And then things like mindfulness, like could be meditation or a mindful walk without your phone, or mindful breaths in through your lower belly, digital detox, taking 24 to 48 hours off of social media, off of the news, and then coming back to those things, just focusing on the accounts or the issues that are important to you, so you don't get wrapped up in comparing yourself to other people or feeling overwhelmed. And then, connection, talking about the things you're going through to a therapist, to a friend, a family, someone that cares about you, so you can work through those things, break those things down. And then purpose is definitely in the toolkit. That's why I talk about a bucket list, because it's, when you're doing the things that you love, you're more alive, you have more energy, you can then deploy that in any way that you wish. So it's important to remember that it's not selfish to have personal goals, to do the things that you love, because that's actually, in a funny way, service, because you're fueling yourself so that you can serve other people, whether that's your job, whether that's your family. So you need to fuel yourself up in order to take care of those around you. And one way you do that is by following your passions, doing the things that you love, because those are usually the first things to get pushed when the day-to-day gets in the way, right? Those get buried. That's why this whole project that I started with my friends is called The Buried Life, because it's from a poem written 150 years ago. It's the human condition. The day-to-day buries what you really want to do because life gets in the way. So you have to be proactive in prioritizing those things, or else something will always push it to the back burner. And most people continue to push those things until they die, right? Majority of people at the end of their life, they regret the things they didn't do, not the things they did. So a bucket list is a framework to remind yourself that those things exist, and that you can actually do those things by creating accountability around them and stuff like that. So purpose, I think, is often overlooked, but it's definitely in the toolkit. So those are a couple ideas. Those are the things that work for me.
So good. I love those. There's so many things that are going through my head as you talk about that. One is, Ben, did you know that you cannot simultaneously feel anxious and grateful at the same time?
I did know that, only because one of the other things in the toolkit is to help other people, and it's the same idea. You can't think about someone else and then think about how crappy you feel at the same time. So your brain doesn't have the ability to think about two things at once. So you take yourself out of your own head, worrying, thinking about yourself, and you build a meaningful connection with someone else. So I imagine it's the exact same reasoning behind you can't feel anxious and grateful at the same time. So there you go. It's those simple things. And it's funny, you know those things almost inherently. You're like, I know that I need to be grateful. I know that exercise is good for me, but you still don't do them. I still don't do them all the time. So how can you build those practices into your day in a way that's a very low lift, so it's very easy for you to do them, and there's a reward somehow attached to them, so you feel like you want to do them, and it's fun, so how can you do that with these habits? Or else it's just work, and you don't want it to be work. You want it to be fun, you want it to be easy, you want to have some sort of reward. So interesting to think about how you can create that with these things. And so they don't have to be perfect. You don't have to totally perfect these practices. Just figure out a way to fit them in somehow. If it's 3 mindful breaths when you feel stressed out, right? That's a good start. Just breathing through your lower abdomen if you feel stressed stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and repose. You're not breathing through your chest like we usually do, which is stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. So you calm yourself down. Just simple things that you can implement. Don't be too hard on yourself. Think, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. It's just fit these into your life in a way that works for you, so that you can just give yourself that little extra boost throughout the day.
I love that. And when you reviewed the 5 practices of particularly resilient people, you felt like actually gradiosity, the practice of both being able to look on a challenge often after some time, and to be able to see that challenge with a heart or a head or both of gratitude, to be able to see the good in the challenge that occurred, and a willingness, that sort of osity part of gradiosity, is that willingness to generously share your story with others so that others can learn, vicariously from you. So I love that in sharing your toolkit, you talked not only about gratitude and a bit about kind of this concept of like gratiosity, how meaningful gratitude is to you. But you also talked about a second practice, which is the practice of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, if there's one thing that someone listening takes away from this conversation, it's talk about the things that you are struggling with to someone that you trust, that you care about, or cares about you, or ideally a professional. There's a great stigma around therapy, which is nonsensical. I mean, it doesn't makes no sense why there would be a stigma around therapy. It's everyone should be so lucky to have a therapist, and let's put aside the barriers to entry. The cost of therapy, or it takes time to find the right therapist for you, because that's just a relationship takes time to build, and also to find the right type of person. But just around the idea of the stigma around therapy is it's just too bad that it's there. Because if you're trying to play basketball, you don't try and play basketball without a basketball coach, right? You can, but you're going to be much better with a coach. So why would you go about the biggest game of your life, without some sort of coach? I mean, it's just someone to help guide you, give you tools for your toolkit, navigate difficult situations, see things that you can't see, right? We have all these blind spots from childhood, these loops that we're running in, and someone's like, hey, do you know that you keep talking about this, you keep doing that, and you realize, wow, I didn't realize that this is a pattern that I have. So I mean, a therapist is just an incredible resource. So we don't have to talk to a therapist if you don't want to, but just somebody, because if you think about when you reach out for help, what you're really doing is you're opening the door for them to come back to you in their eventual time of need, right? So you're creating an open door policy for them to then share their struggles with you, which is this, and that's the world we want to create, a world of connectedness and compassion. And what you're also doing is that when you share, you're giving someone else the opportunity to help you. If you don't share, you're just figuring it out in your mind. It's just you. So when you share, you're able to actually get advice from somebody. And when you speak about these things, you're able to break them down. You're able to look at them from a different perspective. You're able to work through them in a different way than you were when they were just running around in your head, running loops, and probably just getting yourself all revved up in a tizzy. So you give yourself the ability to actually work through them. You're allowing yourself to get advice from someone else, and you're also opening the door for someone to come back to you in their eventual time of need. And so if you can, and it's not easy, you have to have the courage to be vulnerable, to share. But when you do, this thing that's been running you in some way, when you share it, it loses some power. It gets decharged. And so the first time that I shared my struggles, right? Like I got depressed in high school. My first year university, I dropped out of school, got dropped from the national rugby team, became a shut-in my parents' house for someone that was very A-type personality, loved being out with friends. I couldn't leave the house. And ultimately, that place of darkness led to this great adventure that changed my life because of a few decisions that I was made and the support of friends. But when I shared that story for the first time, I was so scared because I was so ashamed of this that my hands were shaking. And so I had to like ball my hands in a fist and put it behind my back. And then I shared the story. And next time on stage, still shaking, but a little bit less. Next time, a little bit less, until now I look forward to the opportunity to talk about it, because I know it's a tool that I have to help others. So this thing that you think are your weaknesses can actually be your strengths if you embrace them rather than try and hide them. And so I didn't understand this, but I saw this impact that was happening when I shared my story. People would say, hey, after the talk, I'm struggling with depression, anxiety. My son is, thank you so much. Or do you have any resources? Or, and so I realized that when I shared, I was it wasn't just therapeutic for me. You know, after I got into the place where I felt like I was comfortable sharing it, after I'd shared it with a therapist and with friends, I could share it to people that I didn't know. I got to that point and I realized, wow, you know, this is something that I can actually embrace to help others, and this power that it had over me was lost.
That's amazing. It's such a great story. And you know, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, which, you know, in the best conversations, right? That just it just comes up organically. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you about, you know, given that this is well-known people like yourself telling their lesser known stories of resilience, um, what is that challenge, or that one challenge or challenges that looking back, you know, you feel like most significantly shaped who you are today? Is it some of the challenges that you began to tell us about in high school, or something else?
It's probably the my struggles that I've had with depression over the years, and I think the biggest depression I had was in university, high school. You know, that first um, time that I got depressed because I didn't understand, you know, why I didn't understand um, that it would end. I didn't know that I was not the only one that it was experiencing something like this, and so it was devastating. You know, I'd lost everything. You know, I didn't know if I'd ever recover from it, and so luckily my friends came and literally pulled me out of the house, took me to a new town to work for the summer. And I got a job. I started feeling some self-worth. I started talking about what I was going through. I started meeting young people that were inspiring, kids my age that started their own businesses or already traveled. And I was like, wow, some people give me energy. Some people take energy from me. And I'm going to try and only surround myself with people that give me energy, that inspire me. And that one decision changed my life forever. And I came back to Victoria. I thought through my friends. I thought, who's inspiring? There's one kid that came to mind who's a filmmaker in my neighborhood, and I'd always wanted to make a movie. So I called him up, and we got two other friends, and the four of us started talking about making a movie. This is in 2006. And so couldn't figure out what the movie was going to be about. Then one of the friends got assigned a poem in English class called The Buried Life. And it was speaking to this feeling that we were feeling that I mentioned of feeling buried. We had all these things that we wanted to do. We hadn't done them because they were buried by the day-to-day. So we thought, let's make a list of all of our buried dreams. And so we wrote a bucket list of 100 of our wildest dreams, pretended we had all the money in the world. We had the ability to do anything. And we thought, we're going to go on a road trip. We're going to accomplish as many of these goals as possible. And we're also going to help strangers we meet accomplish their dream. And we'll ask people along the way, what do you want to do before you die? Which is this question that spawned this list. And if we could help them achieve those dreams, then we would. And this is what our documentary was going to be about. So we boarded an RV, bought a camera on eBay. We threw parties as fundraisers. We did whatever we could so we could take 2 weeks off our summer jobs to go after our list and help other people before we went back to school. So we hit the road, and unexpectedly, strangers started to hear about this weird road trip that we were on, and they sent us emails being like, hey, I can help you cross all these things off your list. I can help you ride a bull or make a toast at a stranger's wedding or get up in a hot air balloon. And then people started sending us their dreams, asking for our help, you know, saying, I've always dreamed of flying a jet or singing a duet with Beyonce or, you know, riding a horse through a drive-through. So we thought, wow, that was crazy. We just went on a 2-week road trip, this huge response. Let's do this again next summer. So we went back to school next summer, bigger list items, helped more people, filmed it, got an old transit bus and made 4 bunks in the back and came down to the States. So we were in Canada. So it was like, you know, in Canada and then the States. Over time, these list items that we thought were impossible, they ended up coming to fruition. And this 2-week road trip ended up lasting over 10 years. So we were able to cross things off, like make a TV show, write a #1 New York Times bestseller, sit with Oprah, have a beer with Prince Harry, and then help other people in very meaningful ways achieve the things that they'd always wanted to do, which ultimately overshadowed isn't the right word, but meant more resonated more than the things that we did on our list. And so this journey was totally unexpected. It came back to this decision that I made to surround myself with people that inspire me, and realized that when you do what you love, you inspire other people to do what they love. Which brings you back to purpose being in the toolkit. It's not selfish to have these personal goals, not only because it fuels you, but also because it inspires other people to do what they love. So as we started our bucket list, people around the world started to go after their list. And we thought, wow, we didn't think anybody was even going to care about our list. We were going to do this to have fun, but the documentary was going to be about helping other people. Because who cares about us doing our list? Let's make the film about helping other people. We still want to do our list because it'll be fun, but we'll make the film. We didn't realize that people would get fired up about their list because we were doing ours. So when you do what you love, you give other people permission to do the same. And that creates a ripple effect, right? So then, you know, there's all these groups that have spawned, companies, athletes, whatever, from this road trip that we did. And so I was like, well, I guess we got to keep doing what we love, right? When you help someone, there's also a ripple effect, because when you help them, you don't just help that person, you help the people connected to them, their family, their friends. So that creates a ripple. But all of these things, this ripple is invisible. You can't really quantify it. It's real, but it's very hard to measure. So it's important to remember that not just big gives create a ripple. Any action has a reaction. Those reactions can be positive or negative. So a smile creates a ripple. A random act of kindness creates a ripple. Act of generosity, gratitude. And so this is a very powerful idea because it proves that one person can create an incredible impact through this exponential ripple. You may not know how far that goes, but you've seen it. You know, you can see it online, right? That's how you can sort of track the ripple when things start to go viral. But this happens in real life all the time. You just can't see it. So when things feel overwhelming, when you feel small, like you can't make a difference, you can make a difference because of the ripple effect. And that's something that I think we all need to keep in mind, because it gives you some power. And if you remember that, then you know that you can always make an impact.
Powerful. That's powerful. And it really dovetails too, Ben, I think with your thoughts and focus around purpose, that you would also be thinking about and talking about these concepts of I don't know, maybe I'll call it agency, which, you know, probably doesn't resonate for a lot of people, but um, this idea of like finding our purpose, what is our purpose, identifying our purpose, understanding our purpose, unpacking our purpose, all those things. And at the same time, I love how you're also reminding people of their inherent power, of their inherent impact, of both their purpose and for the potential for them to dramatically impact not only their own lives, but in doing so, as you said, right, to impact the lives of others. That us pursuing our joy, us pursuing our dreams is not just about us pursuing our joy and our dreams, but it's about role modeling, living by example, as you said, giving other people permission to do that for themselves as well.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point about agency, and just the purpose is such a weighted word. It's so big sometimes. People are like, oh, what's my purpose? Like, oh, I have no idea what my purpose is. Try and think about purpose as anything that brings you joy and happiness. Anything. Sitting alone, having your coffee in the morning, a meaningful conversation, playing tennis, you know, traveling, reading a book. Like that's my definition of purpose. Yes, like I guess put it this way, your purpose doesn't need to make you a living. It can. It's amazing when it does, but also it's a double-edged sword, because when your purpose makes you a living, it turns into your business. And that changes the dynamic. Then you're doing things maybe for money, right? Like more so than for just the love of it. So you just need to, I think, know that you don't have to put so much weight in like, what is my purpose in life? It's what brings me joy and happiness in my life. That's your bucket list. Your bucket list are all the things that are going to bring you joy and happiness. And when you think about your bucket list, usually when we think about a bucket list, we think adventure travel. We think skydive, we think travel to Europe, which are awesome list items. I mean, those should be on your list. That's one category of life. There are 10 categories of life. There's intellectual, there's professional. So, right, what are your intellectual goals? What do you want to learn? What are your professional goals? Emotional goals, spiritual goals, material. It's okay to have material bucket list items. You want to get the dream watch, the house on the beach, how do you want to give back? That's a category of life. So you can just Google 10, 12 categories of life. You can see the different categories. Think about all of those categories. So your list is a true reflection of all the things that you want to do in your life, all the things that are going to bring you joy and happiness. And then the list itself is just a reminder so you don't forget about those things. Because if you don't have something to remind yourself, they get buried, right? So we need to start to create accountability around our personal goals because there are no deadlines and we continually push them. Something always gets in the way. So writing them down creates a bit of accountability. Sharing your goals creates accountability. Having an accountability buddy check in with you down the line creates accountability. And in a world where pretty much everything pulls you away from your true self, your list brings you back, right? This is, I think, as I get older, like my goal is to become more myself when everything kind of seems to pull me away from that. So how do I get back to my truth of who I am and what I know is going to make me happy and therefore allow me to be the best version of myself and show up for everybody that I love in my life and be there for other people and make an impact. And, and so your list, the reason why it's important is because it forces you to slow down and to think about what's really important to you in your life, not what other people think is important to you. Because 76% of people, their single biggest regret in their entire life, this is from a study out of Cornell University by a psychologist named Tom Gilovich, and it's from the psychology journal Emotion. It's called The Ideal Road Not Taken is the name of the study. 76% of people, when asked on their deathbed, what is your number one regret in your entire life? They had the exact same answer. And that answer was not living my ideal self. Not living my ideal self. Living the life someone else wanted for me, not me. Over 3/4 of the population will live their life, their whole life, reach their deathbed on their last breath, look back on their life and think, damn, look, like I didn't take time for me. I lived for someone else, not me. So this is the human condition. This is our, in my opinion, our greatest challenge is coming back to our true self. Now, a bucket list is one way to do it. There are many different ways to do it. How can you create accountability around the things that you know are going to bring you joy and happiness, bring you back to your true self so that they don't get pushed? That's the challenge. And a partner can do that. A friend can do that. Schedule it in your calendar can do that. A list can do that. A commitment can do that. Post-it notes on your fridge can do that. There's reminders in your phone can do that. How can you create accountability around these personal passions and goals after you've given yourself permission to do them? Because now you know that these are actually allowing you to perform better at work and in your professional life and just, in general, be a better human being. And so now that you feel like, okay, this is not selfish, I can do these things. Now, how do I just make sure that they don't get buried by the day-to-day?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love everything that you're saying. I feel like I keep saying that. It's true. So I want to share with you this thing, Ben, that's been happening. And when I thought about like, who could I tell about this thing that's been happening? Actually, you're the person who came to mind. And so I want to share with you this thing that's been happening. So the thing that's been happening is like, as you have, I'm sure, right? We've been doing virtual keynotes and speaking and workshops and things like that, you know, in these past months. And for the 5 practices of particularly resilient people, when I'm giving a keynote, I developed a quiz question for each of the 5 practices, right? Just to give people a flavor. So, you know, vulnerability, right? Multiple choice. And ask them to choose in the 4 responses what they think the most resilient response is, kind of relative to each of the practices, right? So anytime I give a keynote over and over and over, right? 50 people, 10,000 people virtually, the majority of the audience for each of the 5 quiz questions chooses the most resilient multiple choice response, except when we get to the practice of connection. And the practice of connection is about navigating the paradox of the connection with ourselves, our own intuition, our wants, our needs, our desire, with the connections we have externally with others. And when I give this multiple choice question, here's the question. I say, you've been invited to an event and you don't want to attend. Do you A, attend anyway, B, attend, but contract to only stay for 2 hours, right? Like, hey, I'll go to this thing, but I can only be there from 6 to 8 or whatever. C, attend, but then make an excuse to kind of get out of there early, right? Or D, you know, do what you say is true for you, right? And don't attend, right? So the most vulnerable, or I'm sorry, the response that creates, it does create vulnerability, but the response that creates the most kind of like resilient connection is attend the event and contract to only stay for 2 hours, because that demonstrates sort of navigating this paradox of, you know, here's what I want to do versus what other people want me to do. Yeah. Of course, it's completely appropriate not to go, right? But that's the kind of the most resilient response relative to navigating that paradox. Without question, the majority of the audience, even though they have other options, go only stay for 2 hours, go leave early, say they will attend the event, even though they don't want to go. And this, like, I'm just like, right? So this so powerfully speaks to exactly what you're saying. You know, this 76% of people who are not living their ideal life or their most authentic life. And I've been thinking so much about this as well, right? How we support people, you know, change the tide. I love how you use the word the human condition, you know, to allow people to live a life that's more authentic and true, right? Any ideas about how we do that, how we shift from being the 76% of people who are not living their ideal lives to the, I don't know, maybe the 24% who do?
Yeah. So it's really interesting, the answer that people responded with, you know. And so you think about, okay, what I think about when I think about that answer of people, the majority of people saying, well, I'm just going to go to the event, versus say I'm going to go for 2 hours, or I'm just going to be honest and be like, I'm not going to go. That is for an event, a gathering, a social gathering, which on the level of discomfort that you have to go through to be honest with yourself and someone else, to go for 2 hours or to not go, is the bottom. Okay. And most people are not going through, they're not doing that because they don't want to go through the discomfort of saying, I don't want to go, I'm sorry, or I can't go, or I am only going to go for 2 hours. The level of discomfort you have to go through to say, I'm coming, but I actually can't stay for that long, the whole event, I can stay for half, is comparatively to this discomfort of quitting your job, leaving your marriage, you know, is very small compared to what you have to go through to be true to yourself in other areas of your life. But we have to get comfortable with that discomfort because it's not going away. The fear is not going away. All of that is a tax that you have to pay to be true to yourself. You have to pay tax on the money you earn, right? That's how you get the money. You have to pay tax to follow your true self. And that discomfort, that fear of what other people think, that fear of failure are so ingrained in us. Those are human fears that date back thousands of years. The fear of what other people think is said to date back to when we were hunter-gatherers, where we would go out for a hunt, and if we came back without a kill, we were at risk of getting kicked out of the tribe. If you did something wrong in that tribe, you were ostracized. That meant certain death. You couldn't survive, right, without the tribe. So that fear of what other people thought made sense. It was whether you lived or not. Nowadays, it's not life or death, but we treat it as such. And so the truth is, people just aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. They're not. They're thinking about other people, thinking about them all the time. And they're more accommodating than you think. They basically just don't care as much as you think they care about you, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, what's Jane gonna think if I don't go to the party? You know, she's been working so hard on this, and you know, but Jane doesn't care, right? Like Jane's got the party to throw. If you're just honest with her, be like, Jane, I'm so sorry. I would love to be there, but I've got so many other things that I have to do. And honestly, it's stressing me out thinking about all these things that I have to do, and I just need to get them done. And I'm so sorry that I can't come to your event. I would love to, but I can't. Jane's fine. Jane will be fine. Like, so usually we project what other people are going to think. We don't know what they're thinking. We're making it up. So this discomfort that I think you have to first build the awareness. So most of the time it's the fear of what other people think, or the fear of failure that stop us from doing things, you know? So let's shift from, like, you know, we're talking about the party. Let's just talk about our goals, our personal goals. What stops us from going after our personal goals so we don't end up in the 76% of the population that regrets inaction? The first is fear. Fear of what other people think, fear of failure. I think the awareness is key. Understanding that this is just what we're going to feel. So, and that it's not going away. You and I speak all the time. I still get nervous going up on stage. I still get stage fright. That's okay. I know that it's going to be there. It doesn't go away. I've accepted that this is the tax that I have to pay to go speak on stage. I also know that fear and excitement are very similar feelings. Anxiety and excitement are very similar feelings. So I can say, wow, I guess I'm very excited to think about this, or to do this talk, versus I'm anxious. So I can turn that anxiety into excitement by reframing it a little bit. The fear of failure is also a very common fear, but you just need to understand that if you're afraid to go after your goal, or you're waiting for the right time, you failed. You didn't achieve your goal. So at least when you try and you fail, what you learn from that far outweighs any potential hit to your reputation. So when you move through this discomfort, when you are vulnerable, at the very least, you learn something about yourself, you grow. And usually what happens is you're forced to pivot in a failure, which, by the way, I don't even think exists, failure, because you're forced to pivot in a new direction that you needed to go. Typically when I fail, something incredible happens out of it. And I'm not just trying to be like optimistic and paint everything in with, you know, and look through rose-colored glasses. I actually believe, like, when you do something really hard, then you put yourself in a vulnerable position, benefits come from it. So it's just looking at this fear in a different way and knowing that it's not going away. You're not going to wait until the fear is gone and then go after your thing. You have to move through it. You look at anybody that you admire, they're still moving through that fear. They haven't conquered it. They just move through it. So that's the first thing. Second is accountability, because there's no deadlines with these personal goals. So we need to create accountability. as I said, sharing your goals, writing down your goals, having an accountability buddy that not only checks in with you, but you send updates to. That's when you train for a marathon with a buddy, you have a higher chance of actually completing the race, and actually and finishing your training, is because they keep you accountable. You don't feel like training, they're going to make you go. So accountability, write your bucket list with your family, write it with your spouse, create accountability any way that you can. The third is usually we wait to feel inspired to go after these goals, but we're waiting a long time. The inspiration doesn't come. It's not going to just hit us out of the blue. We're going to think, yes, I'm ready to go now. Today's the day. You create your own inspiration through action. So mood follows action. You have to take those steps and you create your own inspiration. It's like starting your engine. It's pushing a snowball over a hill. It grows as it starts to fall down the hill. So you're the architect of your own inspiration through movement. So you don't have to know how you're going to achieve that goal, right? Like, I don't know what the path is going to be. I have no idea how I'm going to play basketball with President Obama. I'm going to drive to DC and start asking people on the street, do you know President Obama? That's the only thing I could think of doing. We could think of doing when we started to go after that list item, play basketball with President Obama, was drive to DC. We didn't know anyone in DC, so we had to go meet people. And then after that, we figured out the next step and the next step, until finally we found ourselves on the court playing basketball with Obama.
I love it. Such an incredible story. And for those of you listening who don't know about Ben's story and his story of On the Buried Life, getting to play basketball with President Obama, it's an amazing story. I invite you to look it up. I'm sure it's online. And Ben, I feel like I could I always learn so much from you. I'm in awe of how you're living your purpose and your mission and your vision for who you are and the life you want to lead with such grace and such authenticity and vulnerability. I feel like I could just keep talking to you for a really long time. And I know you're also up to some really new, exciting things in your life and ways that you're sharing your messages of uplifting others and sort of shining this path of possibility forward for folks. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a tool to create accountability, and all the problems that we face with these goals. I felt like I could help move people through them. So I've always wanted to make a bucket list journal, which creates accountability, creates inspiration through action, and then helps people move through fear. So I actually have the first. This is kind of exciting. Dun, 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 dun.
Da-da-da.
So this is the first copy. I don't know if this shows up, but yeah. So it's a bucket list journal, and basically, this is where you write your list. And first page, you put who the dreams. Let's see if we can pull this up. There we go. Who the dreams belong to. There we go.
There it is.
And then yeah, so then there's like quotes throughout it, which is pretty cool. You go through this 4-step process. You track your goals. You track your you build accountability. You share your goals. You do all these different exercises which move you towards those goals.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about it. It's a beautiful place to keep your list, and then you keep it there forever, and you continue to come back to your list. You update it. You evolve it. It changes as you change, as you grow. Your list grows, and so I'm excited for people to have this as a tool and as a keepsake. To just like, you need a safe place to keep your dreams. So and then you need to march towards them.
Yeah. You need a safe place to keep your dreams, and then you need to march towards them. I love that. You also said, I want to highlight something you said, Ben. I'm going to paraphrase a little if that's okay. Failure does not exist. What a cool concept. Typically, when I fail, something incredible comes out of it. How neat is that?
Yeah.
And do you want to tell us about where our listeners can catch up with you, find your work, get this new journal to protect their dreams and make them happen?
Yeah, the definitely probably the best is Instagram. That's probably where I post the most content. But any social, my handle is just my name at Ben Nemtin. For the Bucket List Journal, you can go to my website, which is bennemtin.com, or thebucketlistjournal.co. And yeah, it's out there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, any words of wisdom you would like to leave us with today?
Well, it's always a tricky one. You sort
No
of,
pressure. No
I,
pressure.
no, I just think that, first I wanted to just say, like, it's been very cool to see you grow over the past 4, 5 years that I've known you. I think that it's very inspiring. I'm very happy to see you start to just really flourish out and do what you're doing. So I'm very happy for you. So congratulations. And last words of wisdom, just don't wait. If you think it's too late to start, in a year you're going to wish you started a year ago. So start today, and just take one small step at a time.
Beautiful. Those are definitely accessible words to live by. And thank you so much for your kind words. Of course, getting to see your journey and the incredible work you're doing in the world has been part of that inspiration that, as you said, right? A rising tide of passion and purpose gives me permission to lift my own boat and be a part of that groundswell. So thank you, Ben. It's been such an honor and just so much fun to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.